Good evening, and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. The Love Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on tonight is mindful living, a prescription for overcoming burnout. We have with us our co-host, Carrie Hardy, and our guest for the evening is Dr. Nadia Ali. Listeners, if you have questions or comments for our guest or our co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can text us at 437-778-3299. Also, if you have resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, your faith organizations, or any local organizations, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And with that, Carrie, if you would take a moment to say hello to our listeners.
Hello, my name is Carrie Hardy. I'm a writer. I love telling the stories of women, especially narratives that touch on trauma, but then also personal growth and triumph. I love telling stories like that because I think it's so important to tell women's stories properly. And yeah, that's pretty much, I do other things, but um, that's what's most relevant in this situation. But if you are interested in telling your story or you have any questions, my email is imagesattainable@gmail.com. Images attainable, both words are spelled phonetically, there's no space, at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, Carrie, you do so much, much more. Dr. Nadia, if you would say hello to our listeners on tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nadia Ali, and I'm a functional physician and a mindfulness coach, and I'm excited to be able to share my story with everyone. And I want to thank Minister Tia and Carrie for giving me the opportunity to be here. I really thank you for helping me share my story.
Thank you so much. And we want to make mention of the book that you participated in, Thriving After Burnout, a compilation of real stories by female physicians. This was guided by Sharon T. McLaughlin, MD, and Dr. Nadia has a part in this book, which is absolutely beautiful. We're going to touch on it this evening, but the book is available on Amazon. We want to start, as usual, sharing some resources. First, listeners, Left Bay, I want to remind you, my good friend, Minister Arthur Marks, he is having a school supply drive. He's collecting supplies now through the 20th. So you still have time to donate supplies if you would like. And also, if you would like to find out how to receive these supplies, if you are in need of them, you can email Minister Marks. His email address is arthurmarksjr@gmail.com. Or you can email me, sufferinginsilencedv @gmail.com for more information as well. But again, you have through August 20th to donate supplies if you would like. And if you want to find out how to receive these supplies when they are given out, you can email him as well for that information. We want to share again Pastor Darius Daniels. He's the pastor of Change Church. His website is dariusdaniels.com. His YouTube channel is Darius Daniels TV. We have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And then we have the Polaris Project, National Human Trafficking Hotline. Their number is 1-888-373-7888. Or you can text the words "Be Free," BEFREE. You can text the words "Be Free" to the number 233-733. And their website is polarisproject.org. Polaris is POLARIS. And the last resource that we have is in Australia, the National Family Violence Counseling Service. Their website is www.1-800-respect.org.au. And their phone number is 1-800-737-7888. 732. And with that, Love Babe, we move to our topic, mindful living, a prescription for overcoming burnout. The very first thing I would like, Dr. Nadia, I would like for you to actually describe what burnout is, but I would like to start by sharing an excerpt from your book, which again, this is just I think is just absolutely beautiful, and it touched me, and it touched me in a way that I didn't expect, because naturally for me, when I think of burnout, I relate it to work. But as I was reading your words, so much of this I could literally relate to the trauma that I personally experienced dealing with domestic violence. And it was automatic, reading your words and just hearing it. And so we do want to stress that when we say domestic violence, that description itself is abuse that happens within the family. It literally means you're related to the person that is causing you violence or causing you harm. When we say intimate partner violence, that is between husband and wife or two people in an intimate relationship. But we know that abuse can and violence can occur in other places, in a workplace, in school. It can happen between strangers. It can happen between people who are not related. And just reading your words, to me, it just brought back the umbrella of the description of what violence, of what abuse actually is, in the different forms that it can take. So I just want to share by a brief excerpt, and then I will turn this to you. And the words start: My father wanted me to be a doctor, but I was not so sure about it. My decision to become a physician came after I had several encounters with our family physician. He had a small clinic that would be jam-packed with people. He was not simply a doctor who diagnosed patients and prescribed medications, but rather he was a healer. He could listen to what they could not say. His words were so soothing and his demeanor was so compassionate that by the end of the visit, the patient would start to feel better. He was the Messiah for so many people who would travel long distances because they felt they could trust him. I always wanted to be that healer, and I thought that getting a degree from medical school would do that. Of course, I was wrong. And then a few paragraphs down, you write, unfortunately, there was no recognition or appreciation for what I was doing. A new hire to the group was added, who also was to have a part-time role in patient safety. But I was already working on it voluntarily. Yet I was never approached or offered that position. I don't know if it was because of my gender or color or lack of connections. I want to start right there, but just in those two paragraphs right there, you've just said so much. And so with that, I want to again present the question, if you could describe what burnout actually is.
So I think the many forms of burnout. So usually when we say burnout, we mean exhaustion. We're at a point where we're at the end of the rope, where we basically say, look, I can't take it anymore. And you also feel like stuck. You don't feel like there is a solution to the problem. And you feel like you've used everything that you had inside you and have accomplished nothing. And you're moving around in circles. Mm-hmm. There are many forms of burnout. There is an emotional burnout. So at that point in time, I was actually facing an emotional burnout because, I felt like, it didn't matter to anybody what I was feeling. My frustration, my needs, my emotional needs were not being met. But I was also intellectually burnt out because I was also not using what I had. So I actually had accomplished by that time. I was both certified in integrative medicine. And I told people, look, I have this degree and there is a reason why I pursued it. but they didn't want me to use that. So intellectually, I was like, I have no development here. Emotionally, I was frustrated, And there was also contextual burnout because in the context that I had nobody that I could talk to. It was almost like I was talking to one person and she said to me, and I'm actually grateful to her. She said to me, Nadia, if you think things are going to change, you are mistaken. If you don't like this position, you should move on. And I appreciate that. I mean, yes, it sounds blunt, but at least she was honest. So contextually, there was nobody who I could say I could share my pain with, or who would say, we understand what you're saying. Let's see what we can do about it. So contextually, also, I was burning out because I was isolated, in that whole arena, And so, and I think the other thing which happened was a spiritual burnout. And what I mean by that I had lost who I was. Who was I? Was I the person who was conforming to the norms and doing what was expected of me in that role? Or was I doing what I wanted, like as an individual who I was? Like I wanted to be the healer, right? Like you talked about. I wanted to be somebody who was compassionate, empathetic. But what was I doing? I was sitting in rooms writing prescription after prescription after prescription. I had 10 minutes per patient. I was doing a disservice to my patients and I was doing a disservice to me because that was not who I was, nor was it what I wanted to be. So that is when I was being burnt out in many, many, many different ways. And when it's very interesting that what people don't understand is that, when we see a huge burden of chronic disease in our society, we say that every third person in this country has a chronic disease. They have diabetes, they have high blood pressure, they have heart disease, they have cancer. When we look at that, we say, oh, so your blood pressure is high. Oh, so you have a heart disease. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Let's see what medicine would work for you. But nobody sees the fact that this person who's coming to you with a physical condition is actually burnt out emotionally or burnt out spiritually or burnt out intellectually, and what you are seeing is the tip of the iceberg. You want to treat the condition, but you don't want to go down to see why is this person physically completely done and has a chronic disease. So I actually had gained weight. I was very irritated, very agitated. It was affecting my personal relationship in my home. It was affecting my relationship with my friends. And so I was physically going down the wrong path. So it's interesting because burnout does not happen in one area and then not extend into another area. So you actually start with one area, but then you literally cover every single area possible. And that's when you say, okay, I don't know where to get my resources from because there's nothing left in me.
Yeah.
And that's the stage I was at.
So I think it was just absolutely amazing that you were helping other individuals with their burnout. You were helping other individuals with their medical issues, all while you were dealing with your own.
And I was also, I'll tell you one other thing where I thought I think that was the point where I felt like, I have to do something was, I had this woman in my room who was going through a divorce. She's crying. She is really trying to cope with the grief of, what happened to her. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make sure that when she's depressed, she's anxious. I'm trying to make sure that she doesn't harm herself. So we are having this conversation, who does she have? Who is her support? And I am getting knock after knock after knock on my door. Dr. Ali, we have 2 patients waiting. Dr. Ali, we have 3 patients waiting. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? What am I really doing? And I was also realizing that my empathy was going down. So we had overnight calls. And then in the morning, you were supposed to go and show up at work at like 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So during the night, when you are receiving call after call after call, and you go in the morning at 9 o'clock, think about how much of your patience is left, how much empathy is left, And so when we have patients that right now complain that I am not satisfied with my doctor. These doctors don't care about anything. They have no risk. We are losing respect for physicians. The reason why we're losing respect is because that physician does not have any more empathy. Because that physician is so burnt out that he or she cannot give at that point in time. And when I saw myself losing empathy and struggling to figure out how am I going to see the patient and make sure that this woman does not harm herself, that's when I was like, maybe I'm a misfit in this situation. Really. I mean, I'm not even supposed to be here. Maybe there's something wrong with me because I can't do what everybody else can do without complaining.
Mm-hmm. This is I really believe just your being here and sharing your words is just awesome, because to hear you say what you are saying, I believe it's more common than what we believe. Just as we deal with domestic violence, we deal with sexual assault. It's more common, but it's not being spoken of. So I want to share another excerpt from your book, and then I want to make a point, on that, and then just turn it over to you again. Um, I was beginning to notice that the number of patients I was being assigned was more than others. It was more work, no increase in pay, not even a note of thank you, or even a remote possibility of growth. Teaching students was getting more and more difficult due to the increasing workload. I had started keeping a log of the number of patients I was seeing. One day, one of my team leads met with me to give me feedback. I knew it would be something negative, since I had never received any positive feedback for any of the volunteer stuff I had done. He told me that the students feel that they do not get a lot of didactic teaching on the floors. I showed my patient log that I was keeping to the lead to explain that it is not possible for me to teach if I'm expected to see 22 to 24 patients a day. Of course, they were not happy with my response. I was thoroughly frustrated. The frustration made me irritable, angry, and depressed. It affected my relationship with my family to the extent that one Saturday, I almost could not stop crying. I felt I could not take it anymore, and I could not continue to survive like this. I called the crisis line to seek help. I just wanted someone to listen and to say that everything would be okay, just like my mom would say. My parents were not in the US, and I did not want to call and make them worried. I think this level of openness, this level of transparency that you have is just beautiful, because it's a woman of your stature, a woman with your background, who is saying, I need help. And you actually do what you need to do to seek out the help. But I think it's I don't want to use the word fascinating, but I think it's remarkable, um, that it's just a woman of your caliber, because we often look at individuals and we say, you're dealing with a problem because you have a lack of education, you have lack of finances, you have lack of social status, but you are in the top tier of what you do. You're very well educated. You obviously know what you're doing. You're among some of the best colleagues there could be. You've worked in some great places, and yet and still, you, again, of your caliber, you're dealing with these issues. And I just think it's awesome that you are transparent about that, and that you did what you needed to do to get through it. You did not conform with everyone else, and just try to keep up with them, and just keep going. You did what you needed to do to reach out, for the help that you needed. And I love how you said, you know, you needed to hear a voice to say that everything would be okay, like talking to your mom. And that's what so many of us just want and need at times when we're just going through the trauma or depression or the stress. You want to hear that comforting voice just to say, it's okay. Not even give you an answer or try to figure it out for you, but just that comfort. Can you just speak to that notion of you being who you are, being where you are, you having accomplished the things that you've accomplished in your career, yet you still had to face these issues that brought you to the burnout that you dealt with.
So I'm actually very glad that you picked up that point, because I think we have a lot of assumptions, when we talk about burnout, right? We think that you are going to burn out if you are not educated, or you're financially at a disadvantage, or you don't have a job, or you don't have a big house. If you have a big house, you shouldn't be really burnt out because you have so much money. And I think all of those notions are inaccurate, because you can burn out irrespective of gender, color, education status, financial status, and even social status. I cannot tell you how many times, people are socially isolated but very well connected. And I want to emphasize this because our relationships today are very superficial, extremely superficial. We want to be what we want other people to think about us. Mm-hmm. So you will see people posting pictures on Facebook, couples. Oh, look at we did this and we did that, and within 3 months you have the information that there's a divorce going on. You're like, oh, but 3 months ago I saw them in Hawaii. Well, great that you saw them in Hawaii. But that relationship, where it is you don't know. You may have 200 friends on Facebook, yet when you are in trouble, you don't have a single person that you can pick up the phone and say, listen, I need somebody, I'm going cuckoo here. Can somebody come and help me, please? So I think that, social connection does not necessarily mean that you're not going to be socially isolated, And so I think we have all of these notions which are not true. Number one. And number two, I think that we are conditioned to, like I said, that, the system I was in, there were a lot of other physicians. I was not the only physician there, okay? And there were other people who were suffering. And the reason why I could not find anybody was nobody wanted to come out and share what they were going through, because they were worried about the repercussions of doing that, So a lot of times we are very much afraid of being vulnerable. So they don't want to say that, oh, I went to a therapist. Because if they do that, then people will think, oh, this guy must have major mental issues. Well, so everybody has mental issues, but nobody wants to admit it. Yes, which is a big problem. If you call a crisis line, there's nothing to be ashamed about. At least you are brave enough to seek help. And that is very important, that we feature people who actually are honest and transparent, rather than we avoid people who put up pictures which don't even tell the truth, And so I think that this is the reason why I think that the platform that you have is very important, because you want to feature people who have actually gone through difficult situations and admitted to having gone through difficult situations. Yes. And I will also say one other thing. I think the notion that if you make a mistake, you are stupid needs to go away. We have to avoid people who make mistakes, admit them, and then make sure that they don't make the mistake again, or at least attempt to not make it again, rather than to have people who say, I never made any mistakes. I have no regrets. I have not done anything wrong. It is not humanly possible for somebody to have not made mistakes, to not have failed, and that we should appreciate those who have actually made mistakes and who are failures, because failure is the first step to success. If you haven't failed, you haven't learned anything in life. If you haven't had a trauma, you have learned nothing in life. And so I think that what I will tell you from my story today, I'm very grateful for the people in the system who made me run like a headless chicken from one place to the other, right? Because it was because of them that I started asking the questions, am I doing what I really want to do? Am I in the right place? Is this really what my goal is? Is this who I really am? Is this the reason why I got into medicine? If they hadn't done that, I would have kept being in the system. because I wanted to tell everybody, look, I'm just like everybody else. I'm doing what everybody else is doing, you know, and I would have never, ever been able to be who I am. So I think that failure is very important. It's very important to make mistakes. And I will admit, I made a lot of mistakes. And I have no regrets that I made them. I mean, I know I shouldn't have made them, but I didn't make them because I wanted to. You know, at that time, I did what I could to the best of my ability with the information that I had. You know, today, if you tell me, would you repeat, if you go back, will you make all of those mistakes? Of course, I will not. It will be a very smooth journey if I were to go back. But nobody has a smooth journey, you know, and you lose big time. And that's okay because that loss came with the gain that today I'm very happy that I learned from what I made mistake, what my failures were. And I'm hoping that as I move forward, I will be able to make more mistakes. But I know now that I can get up. And that is more important than not move because you're worried about falling down.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much. Carrie, do you have a question or comment for Dr. Nadia?
Okay, so definitely because burnout is very pertinent to my human experience. Unfortunately, yeah, I'm like 25, but um so for me burnout, it feels like I can literally feel myself like shutting down. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I can just feel my body like or my mental space being like, like peace, I'm out, I'm done, like I'm out. All vital functions, that's the only thing we got. You need to eat, you need to sleep, potentially. You need to be able to use the bathroom. And so I feel like when Dr. Nadia was talking about that, about her losing empathy, I think some people um when someone has a high power career or when they're working very very hard, it doesn't even have to be a high power career. I mean, you could be pulling so many hours working at a warehouse, and it's like, oh, you're choosing to be numb, or you're choosing not to have empathy or be this way or be cold. A lot of times people don't realize that you were like 1 nanosecond away from losing it.
Absolutely.
And but that's, and then when you're 1 nanosecond away from losing it, that's the time when people get offended.
Mm-hmm.
You had a tone, where were you, all of those things, and that adds even more to the burnout, because then you feel like nobody understands, you feel alone, and then when you feel alone, you're like, okay, then forget y'all. So it's just like a cycle. And
Yes.
then you're like perpetuating the isolation, when really you might need to have someone say, what's going on. And on social media, you always see check on your strong friends, but that never happens.
Right. Right. And I think it was a strong friend that wrote that.
So, yeah, just that's, and for me, like, and then I took some time. I was like, okay, I need to rest, because if I don't rest, I feel like something is about to go down. I don't know, spiritually, physically, I don't know. But basically, and then when I started to rest, I started to get sick. I was like, what? And then I didn't have a fever. It was just GI, which is like gastrointestinal, and it was like phlegm, coughing. And then I was like, what is going on with me? And I went to research, and it said, I don't know, I saw something called leisure sickness. It's basically like when your body is like in shock because you're resting. And I was like, see, no, that is that's horrible. That's really all I have. I mean, at this point, that's what burnout feels like for me. That's been my experiences. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with the shutdown, and for me, I think it's very interesting because when I was in my abusive marriage, all that I went through, and I've said several times that I was always pretending, and Jen, always corrects me and said I was surviving. I was doing what I needed to do, survive. So all my emotions were not real. I was doing what I needed to do in a moment. So I was burnt out, but I couldn't allow myself to feel it. I just had to do what I had to do to get through it. And that was being in the trauma, that was being in the traumatic situation. But I have noticed for me being out of that situation and then being able to go through my healing process and come to what I believe is a normal state in my life, I can completely understand what you said, Carrie, about shutting down. Now I can feel myself shutting down. I can feel it when my body is tired. I can feel it when I need to sleep, when I need to eat, when I need to do nothing. It's like my body is talking to me in a way that I could not hear when I was actually in it. And so as I go through things now, I think it's very interesting to me how now I can identify my emotions. I can identify when I'm overworked, when I'm tired, when I'm stressed. It's for me much easier to identify because I'm not actually in that situation. And for me, a lot of it is dealing with the post-traumatic stress from all of it, because I have to rework and deal with the past. Sometimes I have to deal with, issues over again. And then where I am now, most of the time is just maintaining where I am. But I agree. And it's fascinating to me how I can notice that, how I can see, that change. But Dr. Nadia, I would ask you, in talking about that cycle and how you can, well, whether you can feel it or not, whether you can feel your body shutting down. I mean, because something is wrong. It's just your body is going to physically react to it or not. I want to ask you, can you tell our listeners, can you give us some practical ways on how to deal with burnout, whether you feel it physically or not? But I mean, it if you're in it, if you're in the cycle. So what are some practical ways to, I guess, break that cycle or just deal with the burnout as you're in it and trying to get through it?
So I think Carrie made a really good point about shutting down, and what you said was the step up of that. So it's very interesting what happens, and I realized this that as I talked about working in the system, it was so many hours that you're putting in. Like we live in a society where we work like dogs. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I can't change that. Most of us work more than what our capacity is. Most of us work more than what we're genetically created to do. Okay, we work long hours. We don't get sleep. We eat complete crap. Okay, so when you do that, think about the system. Think about how much you're putting on the system. So it's a cup. It's getting full and more full. And there is no relief time. It's just more and more and more. And so what happens is that in our effort to do everything, achieve everything, run every direction, we don't listen to what our body is saying. We literally ignore it. And by the time we realize it, the water has already gone out of the cup. It's already gotten overwhelmed. The cup is now flowing. That is when we catch ourselves. And that's when Carrie catches herself. But it's too late. It's too late because the cup has already overflown. It's going to go out, and now you are going to burst. And some people burst by bursting out on others. Others actually close down and they just, burst inside because they don't like to burst outside. So they're going to have an inner burst. Some people will have an outer burst, But either way, you will have to discharge because you have gathered so much lava that somehow that lava has to be released in one way or the other. And that's when, people say my relationship is going sour because obviously the lava is bursting into the relationship, or you're shouting at your kids, and so what happens is that's too late. that is too late. And then what happens is, when, on the other hand, once you have had that situation, you need to start looking into, what is my body telling me? What is my brain telling me? Where am I emotionally? And that has to happen every day. It can't happen when everything has gotten sour. You can't ask that question at that time. It is too late, you know? And so every day, and what you're doing, Satia, is you are listening to your body. Now you've gotten to a point you realize, I can't let this go to that degree. So you ask yourself every day, what am I feeling? Am I upset? Am I happy? Am I content? And what are my thoughts? How do I feel about the people around me? How do I feel about my relationship? Because what happens is that when you're not thinking, things are going broke in a lot of directions. And you are not interested. You don't have time to sit and figure out what you're thinking, to sit and figure out what you're feeling. And you don't even have time to communicate. You don't have time to seek help. Mm-hmm. And then when everything ends in a disaster, now you're thinking, so where am I going to start from? Because there's so much broken, and now it's time for surgery. You know, before you could have gotten a pill and gotten away with it. But now there's a heart attack. Now we have to take you to the cath lab and we have to do surgery. So me and Minister T are people who have had surgeries. So once you have had surgery, then you know, I don't want to have another surgery. So I'm going to every day figure out, what am I eating? Am I doing exercise or not? Because you never want to get to the point where you have to get into the hospital. You know, and so I think that the best thing, I always tell people, the first thing to do is to make sure your plate is only 85 to 90% full. You should never have a plate which is 100% full. That space that you have, the 5 to 10% space that you leave, is your space. It's your space on a daily basis where you sit down with yourself and assess your temperature, your pulse, not actual temperature and pulse, but your emotional temperature and your intellectual pulse. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? You know, where do I want to be? Am I where I am? What are my issues? How am I planning to deal with them? So that is the first thing. And the first thing is that you should always know what your emotional temperature is and what your intellectual pulse is. If you know that and you see the temperature is going up, you're getting a fever, okay? Or you see that, you know, your pulse is going up, you're like, uh-oh, let's do something about it. Let's do something about it for the fever. Let's do something about the high pulse before you actually get into a full-fledged sepsis situation where the fever is throughout the body, you have aches, pains, you don't know what to do, and now you have to go to the hospital. That is the first thing you have to do. The second thing that I always tell people, and I've always tried to keep this as open as I can, is, you know, you need 2 people or 3 people in your life that you communicate on a regular basis about your temperature and your pulse. You need to tell them, this is how I'm emotionally feeling. And these are some of the issues that I'm thinking about and I have got to do something about. Let's just, you know, brainstorm through this. Let's see, is this, should I be feeling this? Like, should I think differently? What should I do? So you always have to have a couple of people in your life that you are talking on a regular basis, because human beings, if you look at the way we evolved as tribes. You know, we evolved as villages. And if you look at a village, everybody knows everybody else. Everybody knows what's going on in the other person's home as well, because everything is so close. You know exactly what's going on. And it's very easy to share. It's very easy to be vulnerable. And we think vulnerability is a problem, but vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength.
Yes.
When you are vulnerable, you actually are seeking help and you are actually realizing how that vulnerability becomes an opportunity for connection. It becomes an opportunity for growth. If there is going to be no sharing of vulnerability, then you are basically numb. Then you are hiding. How long will you hide? And who are you hiding from? You're trying to hide from yourself. That's not going to work. You have to see yourself in the mirror, and you have to share this with other people and know that they are there to help you and they're as vulnerable as you are, because it is your vulnerability which makes them put their guard down and say, you know what, we have done it, we have faced it, and this is what I did, or this is what this person did that I know of. And that's when you create your village. You need your village. You need your tribe. You can't survive without a tribe. You could have your parents in that tribe if you're very good with them. You could have your friends in that tribe. You could have a mentor in that tribe. There is no criteria as to who can be in the tribe. Whoever you want can be in the tribe. But you need a tribe, and you need that open communication. And the last but not least point that I would raise, and this is very important, rather, I would say if you can get to this point, you would have really achieved the nirvana, as we say, and that is communicate with yourself, because a lot of times, if you talk to yourself, you will get a lot of answers. A lot of answers that nobody around you will give you. Remember that when you talk to the tribe, when you talk to the people that you can be vulnerable with, they cannot answer your questions. They can listen, but they help you communicate with yourself, because deep down we have all the answers. We just sometimes don't want to hear them. We just don't want to accept them. But when you start listening to yourself deep down, you will get your answers. What do you want from life? And for once, these answers will not be what the society wants you to do. They will be what you truly want to do. And that, I think if you look at the source of a lot of burnout, the source of a lot of unhappiness, it is when we do what the society wants us to do, not really what we want to do. And I'll give you my example. I knew what I wanted to do, but I wanted to stay in the health system and do what I wanted to do. I wanted to change the system to make it into a healing system who would do what I wanted to do. Deep down, I knew very well nobody's interested in change. They made it very clear to me as well. But I was not willing to accept that answer, because I was like, how can I be out of the system? Now, I'll be like, I don't want to be this separate person. I want to be with this system, and I want to do what I want to do, and I want everybody else to do what I want to do. And that is not possible. And so I finally looked inside me and I said to me, do I really think they're going to change? And I said, no. Then I said to myself, will I ever change? And I said, no. Do I want to change? No. So what's the solution? The solution is that I'm going to be out of the system. I have to give this sacrifice for me to do what I want to do. I will have zero pay. I have to take that. It's all right. Because at the end of the day, what is more important to me? Do I want to be a healer? Or do I want to have X amount of money every month? I said, no, I want to be a healer. If I earn less, I don't care. Let's do that. And so you talk to yourself and you make very hard decisions, because this is your priority. What is your priority? What do you want to do? When we don't know how long we're going to live, right? Tomorrow could be the last day of our life. Do I want to have the last day of my life thinking, what if I had had my own practice and I had actually healed people the way I wanted? Do I want to have that thought before I die? No, I don't. Do I want to have the thought that I did what I could to the best of my ability, irrespective of whether I succeeded or I failed? Because when you go in, you have to know failure is also a possibility. You also know that inside you, that failure is a possibility. But what is important? What is important is that I'm true to myself and I say to myself, I did my best. Success or failure is not in my hands. What it was in my hands was attempting to do the right thing. And then whatever happens, ultimately at the end of the day, we all know that there's something more powerful than us, and to have that trust that whatever you're doing, trust that there is someone there who's much higher, much bigger, much more compassionate, that will take care of things. But it will not happen instant. It's not like you start your practice and suddenly you are this physician, everything's coming to you. No. It may take a year, it may take 2 years, it may take 3 years, it may take 10 years. But you have to keep on doing the attempt and have that trust. And that trust is by looking inside you. When you look inside you, you see the connection that you have with the bigger power. You see the answers to your questions. And once you have that in your life, it will be very easy for you to not be burnt out. Because even if you lose your tribe, you have something, right? Your best friend sits inside you and tells you it's going to be okay. You are going to survive, and there's a power there who will make sure that you will survive. But you're going to do the right thing, and you know exactly what the right thing is, and you don't care what the society thinks, and you don't care what the world thinks, because that is not important. Because you will do who you are and what you want to do, what you really think you are passionate about. And so if those three things, if we take those three things, and those are very difficult things to do, I agree with that, but that is, where you want to be.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. That was amazing as well. And actually, when you started talking about villages and tribes, your support, I was going to ask you that about the importance of having a true support system around you. Um, and with that, I wanted to read one more excerpt, and this is it. But you spoke so highly of your husband and being your support system. I wanted to share this, and then Carrie, I'll go to you for a question or comment after that. But you write, he could see how my supervisors were neither appreciative nor interested in supporting the initiatives that I wanted to take to improve patient care. Rather, they were disrespectful, degrading, and arrogant toward me. He saw that I deserved better. He realized that the price I was paying for these jobs was affecting my creativity, self-worth, health, and relationship. He wrote my resignation, and he said that he would support me in whatever I wanted to do, even if I did not earn a penny. The value of my happiness, health, and self-worth was much greater than what anyone could pay me. I thought that was awesome. I mean, he even wrote your resignation letter.
He did. And he said, can you please just give it?
I was reading and I was just like cheering, like, yeah, like this is awesome. He wrote the letter.
Right, absolutely. Because even at that time, you can imagine my self-worth.
Yes.
Even at that time, I was not willing to write my resignation letter. And I'm thinking, is this the right time? Should I wait and do something about my practice? And he said, no, you're not waiting. Just give it, please.
Oh my God, that was awesome. The only thing that could have been better is if he walked into the office and delivered it himself. But I just thought that was just so amazing, to have a support system like that. And I want to say, Love Bay, if you don't have a supporter spouse, if you can't reach out to family, if you can't reach out to friends, you can create your support system. You have the power within you to create your village or your tribe. So if that is calling hotline numbers, if that is reaching out to a circle of people, if that is gathering counselors, if that is gathering mentors or teachers in particular areas, wherever it is, if it's home, if it's work, if it's church, you have the power to create your support system. And I want to say you also have the power to change your support system. You may outgrow particular individuals if they were in your lives for specific reasons. It does not have to be that anything disastrous happened, but it may be, a goal was met and now it's time to move on. It may be, you put a system together and someone did not live up to their responsibility, and you see it, you see the truth, you see what you need to do, and you move on. But you have the power to create, and you have the power to change what you need. But I just thought that was so awesome. I mean, that was a boss move right there. He wrote the resignation letter.
And I want to say one line. I think you said something very profound, and I wanted to make sure that they understand what you said when you said you can change your support system. Because I think that I know a number of people, they get upset when they lose friends, when they embark on a journey which is a different journey than what they were on, right? Or they have decided to move in a different way, and we feel terrible. And we're like, if I tell her this, she's going to be very upset about it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I want everybody to know that, people come in your life for a reason. You are in people's life for a reason too, and so everybody has a role to play. And there's a time when that role will start and when that role will end. Just because somebody does not want to accept you as who you are or what you want to be, it's okay. It's okay to let them go, and you can let them go with a smile and let them go with blessings, because they will find, just like they found you, they'll find really nice people to connect with who will align with them. And you will find really nice people who will align with you. So it is not necessary that somebody is going to be in your life forever. This is not how it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So I think that change is something that is never going to change, and you have to accept change. It's something that can't be changed. And so I think that change is very important. And at certain points in time, you may have to think about your village and say, is this the village for me, or do I want to change this village?
Yes. Awesome. Carrie, do you have a question or comment? So Carrie froze for a minute, but I can't hear you. Yeah. Okay, so Carrie's working on the her technical end, but we are just under the hour. I'm just realizing that the time just went by so fast, but. I just have so many more points, so many more questions. There are so many more excerpts that I wanted to share from your book. Again, it's just amazing. But I think I would ask you. Oh no, I have two more questions because I just thought of one. All right, so I'll ask you this one first. I don't think we usually think of it this way, but in a few minutes that we have left, can you describe how burnout can actually relate to success as well? Because sometimes we can, it doesn't have to be something traumatic. It doesn't have to be disastrous. Sometimes you can be on a high of success from one project or situation, one from another that has actually been good. But if you don't manage that the right way, you can experience burnout. So can you talk about that for a minute, how burnout does relate to success if you don't handle it the right way too?
So that's an excellent point. I think that, a lot of times success brings us a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, right? And then we're like, okay, I had one plan and succeed, I'm going to have 4 more plans, right? So now you're stretching yourself more. And as you're getting more successes, You are taking more and more on your plate. And the plate, which was supposed to hold 100, now it's holding 300 calories, and now it's a big problem, right? And so I think that it's very interesting that when we think about success, right, the question is success what a society terms as success, or what is your definition of success? Because a lot of times our success is often defined by society. So if you have 100, now you want 1,000, then you want 100,000. So there is no end to that, right? There's no end to how much you can materially, go up. But at the same time, that success, that material success, has to be balanced by spiritual success, and emotional success, and intellectual success. And so I think that if you're materially succeeding, that does not necessarily mean that you are emotionally balanced or spiritually balanced. And so that checkpoint, that's why I said it doesn't matter who you are, you have to check your temperature. What is your emotional temperature? What is your intellectual pulse? Irrespective of you're succeeding or not, because there's a huge possibility that there is going to be burnout if you just concentrate on just your material success and do not pay attention to whatever else is going on in other areas, and you will still fall. And this time when you fall, you may still be materially very successful, but you would have lost everything else. And then the material success would mean nothing.
Right.
Because the purpose of that success is actually gone. Right? So I think that it does not matter how successful you are, you still need to have emotional pulse, and so intellectual pulse, like temperature and pulse, like your intellectual and emotions have to be balanced, no matter at what state you are, because you still risk falling.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Carrie, are you back now? I can't hear you. Okay, so Dr. Nadia, I will ask you my second question now. I wanted to ask you, I don't want to say final. I don't want to say a final word in this, but I want to ask you, what would be something that would be of high importance that you would speak to the listeners on dealing with burnout? Like what would be one of the major issues, or one of the most important points that you would bring a light to?
So I'm a mindfulness coach, right? And so we deal with burnout almost on a daily basis. And one of the most important areas that we see, is that by the time we see people, they have lost a lot. And it's very sad, because you didn't have to come and seek help at a point where you are almost zero in terms of your intellectual capacity, your emotional capacity, your patience is gone, your empathy is gone. And one of the things I would say to individuals who even feel like they're stuck and they're still not in that state of complete burnout, I would tell them that the earlier you seek help, you can save so much. You can save relationships. You can save your sanity. You can actually save yourself from a major trauma, And so the important thing is to seek help. Seek help early as you can. And seeking help does not necessarily mean that you have to go to a coach. You can even start doing something as simple as yoga. You can start doing something as simple as Tai Chi. You can start doing something as simple as meditation. Something is better than nothing. And that something will buy you the time for you to think about what do you really need to do to get out of that situation, which may or may not be a coach. but buy yourself that time. Don't run blindly. Stop, pause, even if it's a small pause, like a class, one class a week, even that would give you the time that you need to think about where do you want to go? How do you want to? You have to have a pause. So if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling, look, I don't know where am I going with this, it's time to pause, even if it's a small pause. That pause goes a very, very long way. And for me, that pause was when I started yoga classes, and I could only go like maybe once a week or something like that. But my first class was really enlightening. For the first time, I actually was with myself. For the first time, I realized that I had strained my shoulder and my neck. And actually, after the class, I felt so relaxed. The teacher had asked a question when she started the class. She said, anybody has any neck pain, pressure, whatever? And I said, no, I don't have anything. I'm fine. And at the end of the class, I was like, oh my God, my neck feels so different. I can move it so nicely. I don't feel that tension. Then I realized I had tension and I had pain. And I went to the teacher and said, I'm sorry that you asked a question. I didn't even know that I had this. But now that I don't have it, I know that I had it. And that pause, that 5 minutes of Shavasana she would do at the end, you close your eyes and you lie and relax. Suddenly I started to think what I was thinking. I started to have those emotions. I was like, oh my God, there's so much underneath. I didn't even know that was there. Just 5 minutes at the end. And this part about relaxing my joints, because it was gentle yoga, it was nothing exotic. So a small pause in your life makes a huge difference. So take the pause.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Carrie? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening. I can't hear you. But Dr. Nadia, thank you so much for everything that you have shared. Thank you so much for your part in this awesome book, again, which is Thriving After Burnout, a compilation of real stories by female physicians. And it is guided by Sharon T. McLaughlin. It's available on Amazon. I think it's awesome. And get the book. The excerpt or the portion written by Dr. Nadia is amazing, but there are many, many more stories in this book written by, again, female doctors who I would believe will be absolutely helpful. With that, now I will ask you, Dr. Nadia, for a final comment to our listeners. What would you leave Love Bay with those of us dealing with burnout, be it from trauma, be it from success, be it from just regular everyday life? What would you say?
So one of the things I would say that we have, it's interesting that trauma is not something that we're experiencing today. Historically, we as human beings have been traumatized. We've lived in societies where there was one segment that had a lot and another segment that didn't have at all. And so there has been trauma that we have faced from years and years and years ago. And one of the things I would say that humans have an innate ability to heal. They have the ability to overcome the most difficult situations. And rather, I would say that, the more difficult the situation is, the higher the learning is going to be. And the higher the chance of success and the higher the chance of development. So I would tell everybody who's going through a difficult situation, when you look at your situation, look at it as an opportunity and not as a liability. if you look at the situation and say, what is the learning for me? And I think this is what I do with my patients too. They have a major diagnosis like cancer. It's a life-threatening diagnosis. I mean, it's a really bad diagnosis. But there is a learning. Something has to be learned. There's something that's supposed to come out of it. What is it that you have to get out of it? And if you look at your difficulty as an opportunity to learn, it just changes the way you look at it. It changes that perception that, oh my God, I'm stuck. And suddenly you see that actually as a window to get to your next step. So when I was stuck, when I was burnout, right, what made me actually be able to do what I did? I said, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to practice integrative medicine. This resignation is finally my green card. This is your time to practice and do exactly what you wanted to do. And that's what I want to do. And so if you look at that, difficulty as an opportunity, you will see so many ways that are there for you to move forward. And that is my message, that do not look at your difficulties as difficulties. Look at them as opportunities and make the most of it, because you will probably not have that chance again. And this difficulty has been put in your way deliberately, because you're meant to learn something, you're meant to grow. So you're the lucky person.
Awesome. And as you are a coach, can you please share your contact information with those who would want to connect with you?
Sure, absolutely. So they can go on the website, www.theholistichealing.org. They can call us at 610-363-3973, or they can email us at email@theholistichealing.org. For those who want to learn more about health, we actually do a free newsletter every week to educate our community about what they can do to heal their mind and their body. It's free for everybody. And this is our role that we play to help our community. So you can go and you can subscribe. There are lots of webinars that we have which actually help you to do what you need to take care of yourself. So feel free to go on the website. There are YouTube videos to help you with your health and your mind. And there's a lot of material that can really help you to do what you need to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us. Love Bay, I want to thank you for tuning in with us. And on behalf of myself and Carrie, our co-host for tonight, I just want to say thank you. If you want to catch up on previous episodes from the program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. We thank you for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay family, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Good evening.